Yo, 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 welcome back to the Further Your Lifestyle podcast, conversations on lifestyle, passions, and hustles. My name's Chris Furlong. I am your host, and I'm super excited to be back here having the conversation with you. Episode 103 today, and today we're talking about the easy stuff and the hard stuff, and with both comes success. Now, I'm not here to say that I've got it all figured out. I will get that straight off the table, but what I will say is that over the years, there's been a lot of easy things that have occurred that has enabled me to get to where I am today, but there's also been a lot of hard things that have occurred too. And that's why it's important that we do need to do the easy stuff, but we also need to do the hard stuff too. And that's really what I want to address today, and that's the conversation that we're having. Now, as cliche as it is, I guess success usually comes with an end result in mind, which, of course, we have these big ideas, we have these big ambitions. Sometimes they start to change and they adapt or they evolve over time. But over time as well, there's this journey that we have to take. There's this journey that we have to embark on. And a lot of the time you'll find there's always going to be many, many highs, but as many lows as well. And that's what I like to call the roller coaster ride in many areas of life, especially in business. I've experienced a lot of roller coasters, but I think in life we all go through things which bring us down, and we go through things which get us up on a top of a wave, and we're riding the high life, and we want to just live that life forever. But the reality is that that's not always the case, and we can't always do that. You need to be willing to ride both the moments, when it's really, really high and when it's really, really low. They both build character, and they both will get you further to where you want to be, and they're necessary and crucial in helping you make it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And just to give you a quick little overview of what we will be touching on is how the easy stuff contributes to the success that we chase, and how the hard stuff just as much is important. But then also we're going to touch on why we should actually embrace these things, like the easy stuff, the hard stuff, and we'll touch on a few other things in between. So let's get into it. Let's dive in. Let's roll the intro. So what is the easy stuff? Now, the easy stuff is the things that come straight off the cuff. Now, what does that even mean? Well, if you're still not picking it up, it's essentially the tasks and the actions which come naturally to you that just roll off the tongue in that sense, but they come with minimal effort. They're things that you've always been good at. A lot of the time we could refer to this as your unfair advantage. There's a lot of things that we do that we probably take for granted, that we don't realize we're actually really, really good at, but we've always done it, so we just assume everyone can do it. Now, that's called an unfair advantage. Now, I've spoken about this a few times on the podcast. You can go jump over to furtheryourlifestyle.com and do a quick little search and you'll find something, but it also means what your natural skills and talents are. We're all born differently. We're all born with different things, which for some might be easy and for some it might be hard, but there is easy things that you do because you've always done them and you're just naturally good at them. The other one is things which are common to your life and your lifestyle. Now, this might be from things within your upbringing, how you were taught, where you lived, how you developed yourself, all those different areas. And that sometimes it's not about that you got a better serving when you were born. It's a matter of, sometimes we're brought into a world or an ecosystem of our own existence, which is different to everyone else. And just because you have maybe lots of money, people think that's easier. That doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. It might mean you're able to access anything at any time, but that doesn't mean you've got it all figured out, and that doesn't mean it's easy. So all these different things that I've just mentioned, they're all things that can enable us to get quick wins, and they can all help us build confidence and, I guess, elevate our ability to see that we have what it takes. But sometimes we don't actually realize we've got the easy stuff already figured out, that we've already got the stuff under our nose. And that's where it becomes very, very crucial to understand that we are self-aware. We need to make sure that we are self-aware. But sometimes it takes a little bit of a kick or a push to actually make that happen. An example, maybe you are a skilled artist or maybe a sketcher, and you can create content. You can do it like it's nothing to you. You do it without thinking about it. Now, if you wanted to, you could leverage this to build an audience and a following and a community. And, this community or audience would love what you create and they would want to be part of it or even own a part of that. But we must not forget that sometimes with the easy stuff, we can find ourselves becoming complacent or losing touch or even being oblivious to the abilities or the skills or talents that we have. At the same time, we become complacent and we start to lose touch with, the important things such as rules or things that enable us, or the important things such as keeping us on the right path. And the problem without setting rules or without being, convicted or having some level of discipline or even self-awareness, we tend to lose our path, and it will hinder our progress to move forward and towards where we want to be. Now, this is where it comes a bit of a catch-22, and this is all just coming in my head as I speak through it. But essentially, I get very frustrated when I see people with so much potential and they have the ability to exercise a skill or a talent which they've always been naturally good at, yet they don't. So there's that example, but then there's the example where we kind of get arrogant and we get full of pride because we think, I've got this figured out, I already know how to do this. And we don't actually become, humble, or we don't have any grace with it, and we just assume that because we are talented, that we're better and bigger than anyone else. But then there are people that are. They share it, they give it out, give it away, or they build something which is bigger than themselves to give back and to create, an audience or a community. And that's what I was just kind of talking about in that last bit of fluff. But with all that, you understand now what the easy stuff is. It's the stuff that just comes natural, the things that you do that maybe you take for granted, or it's the stuff that you've always done because that's how you've been brought up. It's the simple stuff, right? Now, let's compare to the hard stuff. What is the hard stuff? Well, the hard stuff refers to the tasks or actions that challenge us. Makes sense, right? It makes us uncomfortable and it requires more effort and more time. These are the things that maybe you might want to avoid, or you tend to procrastinate with, because it means you're going to have to do a little bit of hard work. You know the ones I'm talking about. But the hard stuff is also the things which don't only just challenge us, but they throw us in the deep end. They put us in places where we think, oh, I can't do this. It might stress us out. It might overwhelm us. But some of these hard things, they do come out of nowhere as well. And a lot of the time when they first appear, they feel like a big slap in the face. The reality is it's usually not that bad, even though it does feel painful and annoying and frustrating as much as it is. These are very, very important things. And it's important to recognize that this hard stuff is going to help build the character. It's going to be as equally as important as, basically the easy stuff in our roll towards a journey to success. Because when we face these challenges, when we push through these difficult times or these difficult tasks, we can build resilience, we can learn new skills, and we can adapt and become a better version of ourselves or grow as individuals. Ironically, we usually actually learn more when it comes to facing challenges or doing the hard stuff, because it leads to breakthroughs and ways for us to think differently, gives us fresh perspectives, and it helps us to evolve into a better version of ourselves, as I just said. And it propels us forward. Whereas when we're just doing the things that keep us comfortable, the easy stuff, a lot of the time we just, as I said, we get complacent and we don't actually develop the ability to grow. We just keep doing. But consistency also pays off too. So to give you some perspective of the easy stuff in my own life versus the hard stuff, in the context of, a journey to build out, whatever it is that I want and my success, and the perspective of my now versus your now. Again, I want to be very frank that, this is my journey. I don't have it all figured out, but there's been periods where I've been able to go from A to B, and they are successes in terms of I've been able to achieve a lot and get to a higher place or a better version of myself. And I'll give you a couple of examples that we're going to go through now. The first one is running. Now, if you've been following me for a while, you know that I love running. Running is my escape. It's where I get to really just be myself, get to push myself and grow myself. Now, I've been running for, it must be about 8 years now, maybe. It could be a bit more. And I've done way over 5,000 kilometers. And I think if I was to reflect, and again, I'm just pulling this out of my head, I've probably done over 20 half marathons. I've done 2 marathons, and I've also done an ultra marathon as well. And there's been so much in between and so many different types of runs that I've done. But running in general now comes as an easy effort requirement, meaning compared to when I first started, or when you may first start, or someone when they first start, it's a bit of a struggle to even fathom doing a marathon. Now, people when they start, they look at me and think, how do you do this? You make it look so easy. But the reality is, well, it's not. It's taken 8 years to get here, but it's still hard. It's just easier for me because I know what to do, and I've got the experience and the wisdom or the knowledge to know how to execute better. As I said, it just becomes a lot easier for me. It's taken me 8 years to get here. Don't forget, right? So I've been able to use that 8 years experience, and that's just one example, right? Now, for instance, just in the last week, it's been a bit of a quiet start to the year when it comes to running. And usually last year I was doing 2 half marathons a month, to be honest. And so I've done way over 20 half marathons. But the reality was this year I've had a bit of a slow start, been taking it a bit easy, probably been a bit lazy, to be honest. And what I like to do is challenge myself with doing regular half marathons. And that gives me a chance to check in with myself, set a baseline, understand where I'm at and how things are progressing. Now, I hadn't been training for this, and obviously I've got my progress over time that's compounded, and it sits in the body anyway. But on Sunday, I was able to go out and just get one done. And I was expecting I was going to be doing this at a 7-minute pace, meaning 7 minutes per kilometer. Worked out to be about a 6:26 pace. A lot more than expected. It was better than I expected, but the reality was it still took a lot of hard work. I had to push, I had to grind, I had to dig into some deep places to enable myself to get through and not just cave and just give up. And that's the reality of it. Even when I do a marathon, even when I've done an ultra marathon, there's going to be ups and downs in that journey too. Now, another example, and in a similar fashion, is my own business. Now, I started my reselling business when I left and stepped away from the 9-to-5, basically to build a business, which meant I didn't have to go back. In some cases, the reselling business has been a bit easy for me in some areas. I'm not saying it's easy. There's areas where I've had some unfair advantages. I've always done flipping since I was younger. I did it as a bit of a side hobby. So I had some experience up my sleeve. I have over 10 years of project management experience. I'd been working prior to doing this. So I've got experience with working with numbers, how to basically run a business, because I was running small projects of up to $150 million in project value. And I've had a number of businesses over the years for myself. A lot of them have flopped, but some of them have been pretty good. And I have an idea of how to run one. And because of all this, I've been pretty good with my numbers. I know how things operate, but again, I don't have it all figured out, but there was areas here that has made it easier for me to be able to go in and get started and execute. And again, that doesn't mean that I'm an overnight success or anything like that. I mean, I'm doing really, really well, but I want to be so much further ahead. I want to get to new levels. I want to be hitting new milestones, but it takes time to get there. The point here is that there is going to be those moments where it's very, very easy. Now, it makes these things easier to execute in some theory. However, just because you have the skills, you have the talents, it doesn't mean that it's always going to be easy. To be frank, and again, this is not to, look at me or anything like this. I'm being fully transparent and sharing my numbers to help you have a perspective. But for the first 50 weeks of my business, I averaged $996 in revenue and sales weekly, right? So, which wasn't too bad. I was pretty happy with that. But now, over the next 50 weeks, the second 50 weeks, I was averaging $1,526. And then in the last 11 weeks that has just gone, I've been averaging $2,221. So you can see over time, it's gotten better. I've had to overcome things. I've had to obviously work through different challenges. I've gone through the process of buying a storage unit, renting out a storage unit, changing my business, expanding my business. I now have a worker for me. They're actually a helper at this point, but I'm looking to do get that as a full employment. And I've had to develop new skills. I've had to show up and make progress over time. However, between all this, there have been weeks where I've been down 43%, but I've had weeks where I've been up 95%. So literally going through those waves of roller coaster emotions where things are like, yeah, I've got this all figured out. And then it's like, what is going on? What am I going to do? And almost panicking. The point is, we always will start at the bottom when we start out on anything, but there is going to be times where you're going to go down again and you're going to have to dig deep. You're going to have to challenge yourself. You're going to have to figure it out, and we'll have to work our way back up. I've had back-to-back growth weeks where, it's been just amazing to see how much the business is growing. But then I've had weeks where it drops so quickly that you seriously do. You challenge everything and you think, am I doing the right thing? Was this the right decision? How will I continue to progress? And then a following week, you might have your best week ever. And it happens that way, not just in business, but in life. You need to continue to progress forwards, taking on the hard stuff, leveraging the easy stuff, because new opportunities and new things come around the corner each and every day and each and every week and each and every month. And we need to be willing to ride that. During the process of going in the ups and downs, and a lot of the downs, sometimes it's been from my own fault. I've made mistakes. I've had to do things to fix my own errors, or it might have been due to the lack of my own effort. Or sometimes there was things that occurred that were out of my control. Again, these are times when things make it hard because it's from my own doing or it's out of my control, which means you still have to adapt and figure out, how do I progress forward? How do I push through this? The easy stuff means sometimes we can just fall back into cruise control mode and just let things roll on. Whereas the hard stuff, these are the times when things don't go as planned. And these are the times where we have to take a detour of, sometimes it might be time, sometimes it might be mentally a challenging moment, or a physically challenging moment, or an emotionally challenging moment. But we need to weave through these to enable us to get to where we want to be. We have to ride out these situations regardless, and we have to make it work. So you're probably thinking, Chris, this is great. You've told us about all the hard times. You've told us about all the easy times, but what's the point? Well, the point is there is the beauty of all of this. There's some things that we can get from both the easy and the hard stuff. And the beauty is lessons are forged by tackling the hard stuff head on, going through the tougher times, dealing with challenges, and navigating through the unexpected turns. We get to do this. We get to learn how to handle problems. We get to gather experience to upskill us for the next encounter or the next level. We gain insight, we gain wisdom, and we gain the ability to plan better. Without the hard stuff, we're doing the work which might be a bit of a grind, but we're pushing through. With the hard stuff, yes, we might have to go on a bit of a grind exercise, and we have to do the work, we have to push through, we have to, focus on being resilient, we have to learn how to adapt, we have to learn how to pivot, we have to work on making harder and tougher decisions, but we wouldn't be able to broaden our easy stuff zones if we weren't doing this. Because when we have our comfort zone, when you're in your element right now, this is, I'm holding up a circle for those that are watching, you're basically in a box, you're in a comfort zone, but as you start to expand that comfort zone, more things come into that, which means the stuff that was hard becomes easy, which means now all of a sudden the easy stuff is bigger. You're able to do things a lot quicker. I went hard in going into investing into some clothing into my business to learn about it. It was uncomfortable. I didn't know what I was doing. I couldn't figure it out. But over time, over repetitions and over time boxing, I was able to get a better understanding and I was able to leverage that. And now it becomes a lot more easier. I don't have it all figured out. There's still a lot to learn. But now I'm able to generate more income. Now I'm able to execute differently. Now I'm looking for new stuff when I'm outsourcing because I've developed that skill set. I've developed that understanding. At first it was hard, but now it's easy or easier. So when we go through this process, if we document our lessons, if we can learn even further from that, meaning take the documentation, reflect on it, we can learn even further from it, right? And by keeping tabs on the information that we gather, and then rinsing and repeating, it means next time when we go through the process, we're able to execute, make decisions better, and actually make it a little bit easier. Which brings me to my final point, reflecting. Reflecting is key, and I talk about this all the time. Going through the easy stuff and going through the hard stuff. We want to be reflecting. We want to be looking back and learning and understanding what have we achieved during the process or during the progress. And it will help us do a couple of things. It will help us identify the persistence and the resilience that we have and being self-aware of knowing what's working and what isn't. It also gives us the ability to become aware of the ups and downs. So we can start to pick up trends of, is this going to happen again? Or the signs of when things might be happening again. And when you might be getting into a tough period or a null period or an easy period. We learn. That's as simple as it gets. As I said before, we really learn things, but it's also a chance to share and ask for help. It's a chance to build community support. It's a chance to, make yourself into a better version of yourself. And a lot of the time, We don't realize this, but we can do a lot of things as a lone ranger. But as we start to develop a community, share with others, that builds us into a bigger and better version of ourselves as well. So in a nutshell, what does all this mean? Well, this is the reality of it. In short, both easy and hard stuff is necessary for you to grow. It's necessary for you to be successful. If you want to be successful, you need to be willing to understand that there is going to be some really, really good, easy stuff times, and there's going to be some high times where you feel like the top of the world. But there's also going to be some really poopy times too. Times where it's going to be tough, times where you're going to have to gather your grit and you're going to have to gather your hustle. That's the reality of it. If you can understand that and just take each day as it comes, but leverage some of these things that I've been speaking about, it's going to make it a bit easier. You need to embrace both. You need to embrace the easy, but also embrace the hard. Take the ups and downs as a moment to learn, as a moment to progress. And in the long run, it's going to make you better and enable a quicker progress. Essentially, it enables a balance that allows us to move forward while also building, I guess, a set of skills, builds our confidence, resilience, and it shapes us. It builds character. Without some of those hard, difficult times, and I haven't even gone into detail of things which I think about them now and they're not even big deals, but at the time you're trying to solve, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get enough sales? Or how am I going to earn enough money for this week? Or how am I going to conquer this? How am I going to have that big conversation with someone? Or I need to do a presentation at work. Or all these different things that run in our heads. We think it seems impossible. It seems too hard. Yet once you go through it with the support of others, once you go through it knowing that you've trained for it or you've practiced for it or you've prepared for it, it's usually not that bad. And you come out stronger, better, and the next time will be easier. So what about you? How do you go about handling the easy stuff? And have you ever found yourself becoming complacent and you've let things slip, or you had to then double down to play catch up and get back into a groove? And how have you leveraged these moments? Maybe you've doubled down because things are getting easy, so you've like, this is so good. Let's make this even better. Like, how can I do this better because it's so easy? Can I replicate it? Can I duplicate it? Can I double down it? How's that worked for you? What about the hard stuff? How do you go about when you're pushed away from your easy stuff? And how do you go about when you are put into the deep end? How do you go about it when maybe you feel like you're not getting close to your goals because the goalpost might move? Has it scared you off? Does it challenge you? Or do you become a fighter? Do you become someone that becomes resilient, a resilient monster? Are you one to leverage the lessons and enable them to slingshot you further ahead, or do you curl up into a ball? There's no right or wrong answer. I'm here to just help you think, and I'm also curious to know if you want to share. The most important thing that we can do is that we become aware of these things. If we can become self-aware, it means we can acknowledge them and we can make a decision and execute accordingly. Now, before I wrap up, one thing I do want to say is it's super important that we do ask for help, to share with others our advice, our experience, our, wisdom, things that we've done. But also, if you're struggling with this, ask for help. Reach out to someone. There's a huge community out there of people willing to help you learn, willing to help you grow. Of course, we just got to be willing to ask. And sometimes that ask is the hard stuff because we're too arrogant. We might be too proud or too scared to ask because what will people think? Don't be. It might actually change your life. Now, if you would like to share, if you would like to continue the conversation, there's multiple ways you can do this. You can leave a message over at SpeakPipe. That's speakpipe.com/furtheryourlifestyle, or you can leave a comment. You can send me a message over on Instagram. You can send me an email. All the details in the description in the show notes below. I would really love to have you reach out and do a SpeakPipe because I want to continue the conversation. I want to hear what you're thinking. And if you are thinking something, pause the video right now or pause the episode right now. Jump over to www.speakpipe.com/furtheryourlifestyle. Jump over there and you can leave a voicemail. You can leave a comment. You can leave your thoughts. You can ask a question and I can include it into this podcast and we can have a conversation. Regardless, really do appreciate you being here. Thanks for hanging out. It's always an honor and pleasure to have this conversation. And you have a wonderful day. Cheers.